My name is Avery Ruffin, and you're listening to the Nancy Ruffin Show.
It's a new day, and it's Monday. Hey guys. Welcome back to another episode of the Nancy Ruffin Show. Do not mind me. I am just full of joy this morning. It is going to be an amazing week for me and for you. I am proclaiming that. And I want you to proclaim that for yourself as well, because we know that as we set our intentions for the day and as we put out into the universe that which we want to manifest in our life, then that is the vibration that we start to create. So that which we seek will also begin seeking us. So if you want joy, be joy, practice joy, and call more joy into your life. On this week's episode, we're going to be talking about a little bit of everything. I don't have a specific topic for this week. I just really wanted to share my thoughts on some of the things that have been happening and I've been seeing within the past couple of weeks. The message at church this week was specific to joy, which is why I wanted to kind of touch upon that a little bit in this episode. But May is also Mental Health Awareness Month, and I want to make sure that we talk about that and we bring some awareness and that we are paying attention not only to our own mental health, but to the mental health of those around us. Sometimes I think we get so caught up in our own lives that we may not realize that someone close to us or someone that we love, or maybe even someone in the workplace might be going through a difficult time. So I think that it's important for us to kind of also tune into that and see how we can help others during some of their most sensitive times of need. So when I get back, we're going to get into this week's episode. And I'm just happy that you guys are here. So stay tuned. You are tuned in to the Nancy Ruffin Show, a digital global classroom where individuals across all ages, backgrounds, and career levels tune in for guidance and motivation to live life on their own terms. Hosted by award-winning author, transformation coach, and the self-proclaimed Latina Oprah, the Nancy Ruffin Show is where inspiring thought leaders, modern-day influencers, and social game changers come to discuss their own personal journeys and have real conversations about the journey to success. It's where the next generation of leaders come to tap into their potential, ignite their fire, and expand their self-awareness. So if you're ready to power up and blaze trails of positive change, then you're in the right place. Let's get started. Welcome back, guys. It is your girl, Nancy Ruffin. If this is your first time joining us, thank you for being here. I am grateful that you have chosen to spend the next 35 minutes of your time listening to me when you could be doing so many other things. There is so much appreciation for the time that you all give me week to week. And I never want you to think that I take it for granted. One, because I understand the value of a second. In a world where we are constantly moving, when we are so busy, whenever we give our time and focus to anything, that is a big deal. And so I just want you to know that I appreciate you tuning in and listening. And then I appreciate those of you who even go a step further and leave me comments, who slide into my DMs, who are sending me email messages, telling me how much I am helping you or how listening to this podcast is really helping you to see things from a different perspective, or maybe there's something that I said or maybe a guest shared on here that was really an aha moment for you and has really helped you to see clearer with regard to your life, your purpose, the things that you're supposed to be doing. I don't want you to think that I don't appreciate that. It is so appreciated. And so if you are tuning in for the first time, I just want you to know that for me, this is a big deal. To you, it might just be something that you're doing to maybe get you through the day, or maybe to make your commute go quicker. But for me, it really means a lot that you have even given me 2 seconds to listen to me. So thank you. And if you stick around till the end of the podcast and you enjoy this episode, then I will humbly ask that you share it, that you tell your friends that you listened, tell them what you loved about it, tell them what you found to be most meaningful, and then make sure that you're subscribed and leave us a review. It might not seem like it's a big deal to you, but in this world where everything is numbers and algorithms, ratings and reviews really go a long way with elevating the podcast and really giving us more visibility. So in that way, that's how you're helping me, because my goal really is to expand this platform so that people across the globe are really listening. I'm so committed to this work that I do, and I believe that the things that I say do provide value. And so I want to be able to reach as many people as possible. So make sure you subscribe, you share, leave a review, and give us a rating, right? If you're there, you might as well just do the whole thing. But in any case, this week, I wanted to just highlight a few of the events that have been happening in our area. For those of you who live within New York City, specifically the 5 boroughs, there have been a number of, I guess, literacy campaigns, I want to say, that have been popping up in the Bronx. As many of you know, the Bronx just opened up its very first bookstore. I believe it's in the Mott Haven section of the Bronx on Alexander Avenue. And the owner is none other than a Latina woman of color, Noel Santos. This woman is a powerhouse, guys. And if you don't know her, if you're not familiar with her story, I encourage you to Google her, because this is a woman who personifies going after your dreams and doing whatever it takes to make them come true. So she had a dream, a vision, a passion to open up a bookstore in her borough, because there wasn't any bookstores in the Bronx. And she felt compelled, and she believes that it's crucial for the advancement of our people that we have access to books and to education, because we know that knowledge is power, right? And so she made it her life's work to do this. And she did so without having any experience in the, I guess, bookstore industry. But she didn't let that stop her either. She didn't let the fact that she had no money stop her, right? So she went and she educated herself on what it is to be a bookstore owner. She educated herself on the book buying process. She immersed herself in various workshops, residencies. She interned, at other bookstores so that she can learn their process. And then if that wasn't enough, she went and set a $100,000 goal, crowdfunding goal, to raise money to do this. And not only did she meet her goal, but she surpassed her goal. And I believe she raised upwards to over $140,000. And last week, the Lib Bar opened in the Bronx, all because one woman had a dream to bring a bookstore to her borough. And so I say this and I share this message with you all, because whatever dream you have, know that you have everything within you to make that dream come true. Even if you don't know how you're going to make it happen at the moment, even if you don't have the resources to make it happen at the moment, don't let the things that you don't have stop you from creating the dream that you want. And the goal is to refocus that energy on the things that you don't have and figure out how you can get what you need in order to make it happen. You can make excuses or you can create results. The effort is pretty much the same. What differs is the action that you take or don't take to make it happen. So I'm challenging you today, that thing that you have been holding off on, that thing that you have been talking yourself out of for whatever reason, I need you to cease that type of thinking this moment and start figuring out a plan on how you're going to make it happen. Use Google, YouTube, go to the library, reach out to people who may be doing what you want to do and solicit their input. Seek out a mentor. There are so many things that you can do, but you have to get out of your head. You have to stop being lazy. You have to stop making excuses. You have to stop feeling sorry for yourself. You have to start changing that narrative in your head that has led you to believe that that thing that you want is impossible. Nothing in this world is impossible. The word itself says, I'm possible. So what are you possible to create? Right? Figure that out. Get out your feelings and get into action. Step into action and create the things that you were put on this earth to create. But let's shift a little bit from that topic because there's another woman I want to highlight in the Bronx doing phenomenal work centered on literacy as well, and that is one of my good friends, LaTanya Devon. She has been an instrumental player within the poetry and writing circles. This is not her, like, she's not new to this. This is a woman who has curated writing workshops and groups in the past, and they've put on shows as a result of these writing workshops. And I think that her creation, which is Bronx Bound Books, is just another extension of her commitment to the magic of words. And I know that on Sunday, May 5th, they were having their inaugural event in the Bronx. And I'm sure that it was phenomenal because everything that she does is just done with such impeccable excellence. And I just want to shout her out because I think that it's important that we give our leaders and people that are really doing great in the community, we give them the flowers while they can still receive them. And so if you are looking to connect with any type of literary endeavor within the Bronx, reach out to Noelle. I know that her space, the Lit Bar, I believe that it's open for rental if you want to use the space, maybe to host a reading or a workshop, or maybe you're an author and you want to have a book reading there. Reach out to her, and then also reach out to LaTanya and see how you can maybe collaborate with her, to really help strengthen the work that she's doing within her community. And I guess with that being said, when we come back, we're going to get into the conversation about mental health awareness and how we each play a critical role in the lives of each other and making sure that we're all mentally, emotionally, spiritually healthy, right? It's not enough for us to just focus on ourselves, but it's about taking the time to see how the people in our lives are doing. So sit tight, and sit tight, and when I get back, we're going to get into this conversation. Have you ever thought about starting your own podcast? When I was first trying to get this podcast off the ground, I had so many questions. Like, how do I record an episode? How do I get my show into all of the apps people like to listen to? And how do I make money from my podcast? And the answer to every one of these questions was super simple. Anchor. Anchor is a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing your podcast. Best of all, it's 100% free and super easy to use. And now, Anchor can match you with great sponsors who want to advertise on your podcast, which means that you can get paid to podcast right away. So if you've always wanted to start a podcast and make money doing it, then head over to anchor.fm/start to join me and the diverse community of podcasters already using Anchor. I can't wait to hear your podcast.
I'm Alexa, and you're listening to my mommy.
So we're back, and this week I wanted to spend some time talking about mental health, primarily because I think even with all of the conversation that we are having now around mental health, I still don't think that it's enough, especially in communities of color. I mean, we see Charlemagne the God, he's very vocal about his own mental health journey. He's written a book talking specifically about that. He's been very transparent on, his own mental health experience. And still, even with all of these people on the forefront talking about it, I mean, we also have Joe Budden, who we know has had his own issues with mental health and with drug addiction and maintaining sobriety. And I think that both these men are both at a point in their lives where they're healthy and where they're being productive and where they're giving back to their communities. And I think that that's important and it should be recognized, and we definitely should highlight that. But there are so many other men in our communities who are suffering, who are struggling, who just don't know how to deal with their own mental unhealthiness, I guess we can call it. And, I speak from a very personal place because I had a cousin who a few years ago committed suicide, and he had struggled with mental health for most of his adult life. I want to say that by the time he was 19, 20, he had been diagnosed as schizophrenic, bipolar. He was in and out of psychiatric wards and hospitals. And for me, they never dealt with whatever the root cause or the underlying issue of his mental instability, where that stemmed from. All they would do was medicate him and drug him up and then send him back home to deal with his demons by himself. And what was really sad about this situation is that he lived alone. And so there was no one there on an ongoing basis to watch over him, to make sure that he was taking his medication. And in fact, he was also doing drugs. And so he would, whenever he did, take his, his prescriptions, but then he was also smoking weed and doing whatever else, he was. And I'm saddened and even embarrassed to say that I wasn't a very active part of his adult life. And what really saddens me about that is that we were really close when we were younger. And even though there was a significant age difference between he and I want to say at least 10 years, despite that age difference, maybe not 10, maybe like 7, I don't know. But despite the age difference, we were close when we were younger because his father was one of my favorite uncles. His father was like a second father to my sister and I. And so we were always together. We spent holidays together, birthdays together. Our daily lives were together. We attended the same schools. And it wasn't until my uncle and his wife, his then wife, and my cousin's mother divorced that we started to see less of him, because then she moved to a different part of the city. I can't remember where she moved to, but we weren't close anymore. And then by the time she did move back, I guess, to the neighborhood, I feel like there was a disconnect between my uncle and his son, where my uncle maybe wasn't a part of his everyday life. And so for whatever reason, the relationship between my cousin and myself and my sister became distant. And then once we became adults, my sister and I had moved out of Brooklyn, and we never reestablished the closeness that we had. And when he died, I felt guilty. I felt guilty for not being there for him, for not helping enough, because even though I wasn't there physically, I kind of knew what was happening because we knew we would hear, and I just didn't do enough. And when we got the call that he had passed, I went to his apartment, and it was probably the first time I had ever been there since he lived there on his own. And so I was there when they picked up the body and they removed it out of the house. And it was really difficult to forgive myself for not being able to help him when he clearly needed help. And I think that all of us just turned our backs, I guess, for lack of a better word, turned our backs from him because we didn't know how to help. And that's no excuse. But I share that because I'm sure that there are others, maybe in your own life, that are struggling with something, right? And it might not be to the same level, the same intensity as being diagnosed as bipolar or schizophrenic. It might just be something like depression, because he suffered from that as well. And depression is something that has also taken the lives of two other close family members. It was my uncle, his father, died as a result of, it was cardiac arrest. He had a heart attack, but I believe that he had a heart attack because he overdosed on drugs. And I believe that he was overdosing on drugs because he was depressed. And he felt guilty for the suicide of his son. And he felt like he didn't do enough to save his life, or he blamed himself for not being at the apartment when my cousin passed. He had went out to do some errands, and by the time he got back, he found my cousin unconscious in his bedroom. And so for a really long time, he blamed himself. And I think that guilt resulted in him ultimately killing himself, because the heart attack was not his first heart attack. He died, I think it was last year. It's been only a year, or maybe not even a year. I don't know. The time escapes me. But prior to that heart attack, he had a similar episode where his heart stopped. But in that case, fortunately, they were able to get him to the hospital in time, and he was able to recover. He made a full recovery. They brought him back. They resuscitated him. They brought him back to life, and he was okay. But then I guess the depression and the guilt was too much, that he was just, filling his body with all of these different kinds of drugs. And because he also suffers from asthma, I think the combination of all of that brought on the second heart attack, of which he did not recover from. And this is not something that I like to talk about because it's still, I get really emotional. I have not fully dealt with that loss. I'm still grieving it, I think, in my own way. And I try to reconcile it with telling myself that it was what he wanted, because he was so unhappy in this world that all he ever wanted was to be with his children, because his oldest daughter also passed a few years ago, and in her case she died of cancer. So when my other cousin died, his son, he felt like he had lost everything. And it was so overwhelming for him that he didn't know how to cope with the depression in any other way but then to use drugs to kind of numb the pain. And I know this because for whatever reason, out of all of our family members, he confided in me the most. And we spent a lot of time talking. And I remember with my uncle, I was very on top of him because I knew that he suffered from depression. I made sure to call him all the time. I made sure to make time to go visit with him and, spend time with him and go out to lunch and kind of try to gauge where he was. And he would tell me that he was okay, and I would always encourage him, whenever you're feeling sad, whenever you're feeling down, whenever it's too much, just call me, we can talk and I can bring the kids around, because he really loved my daughters. He loved to be around the children. It really brought him a lot of joy. But I think in the end, all of that still wasn't enough. And so as we talk about mental health awareness, and I challenge you to look within your own circles, Who is it that maybe you can extend a listening ear to? Who is it that you can talk to, or maybe just encourage them to seek help, right? And I know that we can't force people to get help that they don't want to, but we have to try our best to encourage them. And one of the things that I do often with the coaching clients that I have is that it never fails. There always comes a point during our work together that things start to bubble up to the surface, either from childhood or from their past or from their relationship with their parents or some kind of childhood trauma that I know requires more than what I can offer during my coaching sessions. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a therapist. I'm not skilled or credentialed in that area. And so I would never step into that role and try to help someone when I know that I'm not equipped. But when that happens and I recognize it, I always encourage them to seek counsel, to go talk to a professional, someone who can help them navigate through their feelings, through their emotions, through some of the things that they have bottled up inside that for whatever reason, through the work that we're doing, is now coming up. Because I will tell you that we, as humans, we condition ourselves to block out painful moments in our life. And we continue to go about our lives thinking that we're okay until something happens and we start to realize that we're not. And when that moment arises, we have a responsibility to ourselves to seek that help. And being able to talk to someone doesn't make you crazy, doesn't make you this cuckoo person or the stigma that we have historically attached to people who seek out mental health services. We cannot survive this life without talking to anyone. Because if that were true, then we wouldn't need each other. We wouldn't need to be in community. We wouldn't need to be in fellowship. We wouldn't need friends. We wouldn't need a support system. We cannot make it in this life alone. We need people, right? And if we didn't need people, God would have never created Eve to keep Adam company. He would have just left Adam exist in this world by himself. But he knew that we needed to have another person in our lives to help us get through life. And maybe it's you. Maybe you're struggling through something right now. Maybe you're holding on to something that you haven't said to anyone and it is killing you inside, right? And you are at the lowest that you've ever been. And you're depressed and you feel that there's no way out. All you can see is darkness surrounding you. But I will tell you that there is light at the end of the tunnel, but you have to be willing to climb through that and to push through it. If you stay where you are and continue to do what you're doing, you're going to remain in darkness. The only way to get to the light is to continually follow where the light is. And what that means is that you have to do the work. You have to be willing to make that phone call. You have to be willing to seek out that professional that can help you get a better understanding of your emotions and help you to let go some of these lies that you have internalized and led yourself to believe about yourself. I don't want you to think that you're crazy. You're not. You are just a result of your experiences. But I have great news for you. You can change your future experiences. You don't have to continue repeating the same cycle of experiences that you have been living. You can change that. And so if no one has told you, I want to be the person that tells you to just go and speak to someone. And if the person that you initially connect with cannot help you, if you don't connect with this person, if it doesn't feel right, don't give up. You have to keep seeking out someone you feel comfortable with. I promise you that they're out there. I promise you that exist. And I keep telling myself, what if I would have reached out to my cousin? What if I would have been that person that he could have come and talked to? And not that I'm a professional, and not that I could have guided him, to the same level as a therapist, but at least I could have gotten a better understanding of where he was. Maybe I could have helped him seek a better therapist, one that wasn't just, filling him up with prescription drugs and sending him on his way. Maybe I would have been able to help him dig into some of the root causes of why he was feeling the way that he was feeling. We never want to live with the what ifs, right? We always want to be able to help people in their time of need, but we can't do that if we're so focused on ourselves that we're not paying attention to what's happening to the people around us. And I think that sometimes we get so disconnected and we become so self-centered that we overlook these things. People are crying out for help right underneath our noses, but we're so focused on ourselves and what we need or what we're not getting that we can't see someone who is really struggling. And so I challenge you to just don't focus so much on yourself. If you are in a healthy emotional place, I encourage you to be of help to someone else in whatever way that you can. Pay more attention. Share a kind word with someone. Share a smile. So many times, and I find myself doing this a lot. I still struggle with this. I'm very short on patience, but the more I commit to my journey with God and the more that I commit to just being a better person, I'm trying to exercise more patience with people, because I realize that sometimes I'm so focused on myself and I'm so self-centered that I may not realize that the reason why someone is short with me or maybe nasty or maybe gives me attitude is because they are going through something in their own lives. And their reaction or their response to me really has nothing to do with me, but is a projection of what's happening in their own lives. And so I'm trying to step out of myself and be aware when I do that and really just step back and say, you know what, God? Maybe this person is going through something. How can you use me in this person's life to kind of lessen the load and help them get past today? And sometimes that's all we need to do. Maybe sometimes it's just us not reacting to someone's disrespect or anger or whatever negative emotion they might be projecting to us. Maybe that's just how we're helping that person that day. We never know, because we're so focused on ourselves that we're not focusing on each other. And mental health awareness, a lot of us talk about it, and we, I think, at a very high level understand how important it is. But I don't think that at a very specific level we're practicing mental health awareness. How are you talking about emotional well-being and mental well-being with your loved ones, with your children, with your spouse, maybe with your parents, right? When was the last time you kind of checked on them to make sure that all was good in their world? Because what we forget, and I think that especially when we get older, our parents tend to hold a lot back from us because we're still their children and they don't want us to worry. And they want us to believe that everything is okay, but sometimes things are not okay. And so how are you really tuning in to your parents to make sure that they are really as okay as they say they are? And I think that's kind of where I want to end this week's episode. I just want you, as you embark on the rest of this week, just to spend some time thinking about that. Thinking about how thinking about your own mental health, your own emotional health, your own spiritual health, but also about the emotional and spiritual well-being of those around you and those closest to you, and the conversations that either you're having or not having. And if you're not having them, what can you do to start initiating that? To start connecting with your loved ones on a very real level that is understanding them where they are right now and not just your perception of where you think they are. So with that, mi gente, go out there, practice kindness, do good, be good, and whatever you set your mind to do this week, just go out there and crush those goals.